Okay, so we're all faced with this choice pretty much constantly, right? Do you go with the flow or do you stand up and push against the tide? It feels like this huge, fundamental conflict of our lives. You either conform or you rebel. But what if that choice, what if the choice itself is actually a trap? Let's dig into that because it's a really fascinating idea.
So, we're usually told there are basically two options on the table. On one side, you've got follow the crowd. It's the path of consensus, it feels safe, but it can also be the path of total delusion. Then, on the other side, you have oppose the crowd. This is the contrarian, the rebel, the person who really defines themselves by not being like everyone else. But here's the kicker. The source material we're looking at today argues that both of these paths, they can lead you to the exact same place, total blindness. All right, to really see how this plays out in the real world, we need a good case study. And I mean a really good one. We're going to look at a time when the crowd wasn't just a little bit off, they were spectacularly, almost unbelievably wrong. So let's go back in time a bit to the late 1990s, the dot-com era. The internet was this brand new, super exciting thing, and it honestly felt like it was going to change absolutely everything. And this wasn't just, regular optimism. The source we're pulling from describes it as a time of almost absolute, unquestioning faith in technology. The crowd was 100% certain they had found the future. And this quote, man, it just perfectly captures the sheer mania of that time. Just think about it. Investors were literally throwing money at anything with a .com in its name. And business owners, they thought they'd struck gold, even if they didn't have a real business plan. Feasibility didn't matter. The only thing that mattered was being part of the revolution. The hype was the business plan. And, well, when your entire foundation is built on hype instead of reality, there's really only one way it can end, isn't there? The bubble burst, the market crashed, and that huge crowd, the one that was so certain of its own genius, it was proven devastatingly wrong. Now, the obvious lesson here seems super simple, right? Never trust the crowd again. But it's not quite that easy. So the most logical reaction to that crash, the thing pretty much everyone did, was to just reject everything about that era. All the optimism, that whole hustle and arrogance vibe, the belief in these huge tech visions, just throw it all out. But as investor and thinker Peter Thiel points out, there's a massive flaw in thinking that way. See, just running in the opposite direction of the crowd, that doesn't actually make you free. You're still letting the crowd dictate your position. You're still just reacting to them, letting their mistakes define what you believe. That's not freedom. It's just a different kind of chain, one that keeps you tied to the very thing you think you're escaping. Yeah, this quote from Thiel just hits the nail on the head. It's like, if the crowd runs east, the rebel just automatically runs west. But here's the thing. Both of them are still looking over their shoulder at the crowd. Neither one is actually looking at a map to figure out where they want to go. So if following the crowd is a trap, and just opposing them is also a trap, what's left? What are you supposed to do? Well, this brings us to the real solution. It's not about reacting at all. It's about being proactive. There's a third path, one that goes way beyond that simple choice between conforming and rebelling, and that is the path of thinking independently. And this is a really powerful question from our source material today. And I think it's worth just pausing for a second to really consider it. How much of what you know, how many of your beliefs, your principles, your big life strategies, are they really based on your own thinking? Or are they just a reaction, a direct rejection of some past mistake, maybe someone else's or maybe even your own? See, this is what it actually means to think for yourself. It's not about glancing over to see which way the crowd is running so you can just bolt in the opposite direction. No, it's about pulling out your own compass, analyzing the terrain for yourself, and charting your own course, one that's based on a vision that you built from the ground up. What this means is that a truly independent thinker can look back at that whole .com mess and say, okay, yeah, the irrational hype was a total disaster. But they can also say, you know what, though? That whole hustle and arrogance spirit back in '99, it actually fueled some incredible innovation. There's something valuable there. We shouldn't just throw it away. It's about learning from the mistakes without letting them push you into a new, equally extreme corner. All right, so to pull this all together, the source material gives us a really useful way to think about this. We can basically see it as a progression through 3 different levels of thinking. It's a simple framework, but it's super powerful. So at level 1, you're just following the crowd. Simple as that. You're swept up in the current, totally blind, with no idea where you're even going. Then there's level 2. This is where you break away, but you're just being reactionary. You're still totally defined by the crowd, just as their polar opposite. Your whole identity is, I'm not them. But level 3, level 3 is where the magic happens. That is true freedom. This is where you think independently. You shape your own perspective. You're not for the crowd or against it. You're just on your own path. And that's really the big idea we want to leave you with today. The next time you feel yourself forming a really strong opinion, just pause for a second and ask yourself this one simple but really profound question. Is this thought actually mine, or is it just a reaction? The answer, as you now know, makes all the difference.